Okay. Literally just now finished watching the finale for season 2 of The Mandalorian. And, excuse me, holy shit. I was like, holy crap. I mean, first of all, like, I was, no hyperbole, was literally edge of my seat in like 10 minutes in. Literally edge of my seat 10 minutes in. Like, the whole episode, I don't think there was anything like that wasn't interesting or weak or just good about the entire episode. The sort of flow of everything was really nice. You know, you said it had a high action, good dialogue, kind of in between, setting stuff up. One thing I do have to notice too, I think they're doing a little bit better in Mandalorian. Oh, that's still on. A little better in Mandalorian than even in some of the cat hair, not cat hair, but in some of the even like Clone Wars or Mandalorian, which they still did it some in there too. But the way like Bo-Katan and some of her other Mandalorian people with her are using their jetpacks for just sort of instead of just flying or just doing something else, doing stuff. I'm going to go all over the place. So if you can't, if you absolutely need sort of linear sort of thought process, I apologize ahead of time. It's not going to be this. Because I just watched, I'm kind of flooded. Everything in my just being is flooded right now with stuff. So, but they'll use it in little bursts. So there was, you know, I forget her name, but the second, you know, the woman with Bo-Katan, in the earlier part of the season, was actually her and Boba Fett got into like a scrap, and she actually used her jetpack to kind of come around and get position on him, and then they both used it in different ways in when they're fighting all these stormtroopers at some point in time too, or later point in time as well. But it wasn't even just, they did use the jetpacks as, okay, we're gonna kind of come off and hide. So as was it Fennec? I keep saying Wen Ming-na. I just want to call Wen Ming-na, Fennec, and Kara. Again, I got people's like real names kind of confused. Usually, I can't remember anyone's real names. Kind of come down like this one thing. Of course, there's no railings and there's dead drop underneath them. So they're clearing. Another squad of stormtroopers come out, and then the other Mandalorians come out and shoot them with the jetpack. But they're actually using it as like boosts to fight. So they showed it a little bit in Clone Wars and Rebels, and even with like a couple things, they've done it with like the Iron Man movies and stuff like that. The little boosts in things for like throwing knees or to gain thing, but they did that a little bit more in this. I thought it was really interesting. But holy crap, the whole thing, the whole like I'm trying to organize how I want to talk about this, but the whole thing. Um, I don't know how to. It's like I don't know if I want to talk about the whole season or just this episode. So I'm just going to kind of focus on this episode because it gives me at least some sort of training thing. It was an amazing episode, even if you don't like Star Wars. If you do like Star Wars, it was freaking phenomenal. I'm trying to watch my language as much as I can because I do use a lot of sort of pejoratives and expletives. I'm trying not to as much. And the whole damn thing was really freaking cool. Again, ebbs and flows. It was almost sort of like it almost had, I don't want to say a musical quality because that doesn't sound right, but yeah, so it had action and the flow of it was really 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 well done. I think it was Peyton Reed or something like that. I think was the one who directed it. um, yeah, I mean there was a couple things that you could kind of call like, oh, this is what's going to happen, and it kind of did a little bit, but it didn't take away from anything either. So oh man, they, there was a Lambda shuttle that had the scientist in it. I forget the scientist's name, but he's actually the guy who's also in American Gods. And so in Slave One, they go and shoot him out, and then like, all right, just prepare to be boarded. We're coming on there. So, man, Din And oh man, Kara go in there and there's two shuttle pilots and the scientist, and the one shuttle pilot takes the scientist as like hostage, and the other one's like, dude, I want nothing to do with this. So he shoots him, and he keeps on goading Cara Dune about Aldrin and being on the Death Star, and she's like, which one? And he's goading her about watching Aldrin blow up and how it was worth it, and all these other people. She dead shot him in the face. And I kind of was like, she's going to shoot him in the face. And she shot him in the face. It's really probably bad to laugh at someone being shot at in the face. But she just dead shot him in the face. Like, just cold-blooded, like, dude ass. Like, I got, apparently the little rebel thing she's got tattooed on there is, you're from Aldrin. You're basically a refugee for all intents and purposes. You're a refugee from Aldrin. That's what that means. So we have like the armband tat that she has means the trooper stuff that she was in with the rebels, and then hat is from Aldrin. But yeah, just dead shot him in the face. So they almost have like their own little fleet at some point in time when they end up kind of recruiting, being able to get Bo-Katan and the other one. The guy Mandalorian wasn't there, but the woman one was. And, they see her in like the bar thing again. And there's, a little, tit for tat, like, yeah, we're not going to do that. We got our own thing. And then the other woman and Boba Fett kind of get into it and they kind of have a fight. But they call it off. And so they make the deal. It's like, hey, yeah, we'll go help you get the kid. But Bo-Katan's like, I want Moff Gideon. He's mine. You don't kill him. And he says a couple of times, like 2 or 3 times in this first part, you don't kill him. He's mine. And the only other real one in the group who knows what that's supposed to mean is the other woman. No one else does. Fett doesn't really even know. Din doesn't really even know. No one else is going to know. One thing I thought was interesting, and it's a little mixed for me because, all right, in the original, like Empire Strikes Back and everything, the sort of go frack yourself voice of the original Boba Fett was great. It was fantastic. To Vader, he's like, no, this is money to me. And even when he's like, do this, he's like, yeah, as you wish. And he's sort of like to Vader a little bit. That's what it sounded like to me growing up. One of the reasons that I was sort of like really like Boba Fett, as a lot of people did or do, was because he had that voice and basically was like to Darth Vader of all people. And even later on when they freeze Han and Carbonite, he's like, what if he doesn't survive? He's worth a lot to me. He's not like, dude, but what if he doesn't survive? He's like, bitch, this is he's like, bitch, you fucking with my money. Like, to Vader, he's doing that, which was like, so when George Lucas had to ignore his Oscar Wilde and completely just all over the original trilogy, and I understand cleaning up the special effects, but then they had to kind of retcon all this stuff too. So they had to use the voice that they used for the clones, the Timura. I apologize for not saying your name correctly, but Timura Morrison. They dubbed his voice in, and yeah, he didn't have it. He does great in the show. The couple episodes he's been showing up in Mandalorian, he does fantastic as Boba Fett. Don't get me wrong, I'm not taking anything away from what he has done in Mandalorian. When they redubbed him in the original trilogy, yeah, because he was like, what if he doesn't survive? He's worth a lot to me. As you wish. I mean, he's just sort of like, it's like, what happened to the guy who's just with his voice going to Darth Vader? Because let's take a step back. Remember what I do for a living. The vast majority of communication is not the words. It's your body language and your voice intonation. His body language was still kind of, his voice intonation was like, it's like, that's not Boba Fett. Come on, dude. This is the person who's been like, everyone's completely going insane over. They made sure they brought him into the extended universe, now Legends canon, as coming out of the Sarlacc pit and being a badass and everything else like that, and you just sort of made him go, yeah, yeah, whatever, yeah, sure. So I'm kind of like, great. But since he was the clone troopers and Boba Fett is an unaltered clone of Jango Fett, Bo-Katan and the other Mandalorian women are like, yeah, no, you don't deserve that armor. And he's like, it's belonged to my father, which was what kind of Mandalorian was. Mando Din was talking to Bo-Katan when she took her helmet off. It's like, you don't deserve that. You took your helmet off. It's like, this is passed down to my family. So he's kind of using their logic. Probably doesn't. He might not know it exactly. He's like, well, you're not Mandalorian. He's like, I didn't say I was. So he might not know exactly, but he might. And even if he does, he might be kind of shoving that back in their face. But they were like, no, I've heard that voice a million times. I know exactly what you are. You're a clone. So that was where their sort of like butting heads thing with that is. Um, so he, man, where was I going with that? Oh, so that was my kind of aside with that. But so they bring up a lot, like, all right, I want Moff Gideon. He's mine. Bo-Katan. He's mine. He's mine. He's mine. We make a plan, a kind of multi-tiered plan. Slave one would pretend to be attacking the Lambda shuttle, and they would kind of go in, and the way that their approach was blocked. There was only a couple of TIE fighters that were able to come out. I thought it was actually a really poor design where they could only kind of swing in, launch one TIE fighter, swing in, launch one TIE fighter out of one sort of thing. But I guess, I mean, I don't know. Maybe because it was only like a one-on-one thing, they didn't want to launch a whole lot of stuff. I just didn't, unless some of the stuff they walked over they could drop out more efficiently. It just seemed inefficient. So they blocked that. That other thing they had must have been able to let the TIE fighters sort of dump out and leave. And the thing they went into was just a sort of main hangar. So they blocked the sort of main hangar with the Lambda shuttle. The one from like Return of the Jedi. It's got the fin and the other fins that come here, and then they can kind of out to the side. So, they go in, and the plan is pretty much everyone will sort of run interference, um, get a big, to do going on, draw all the troops out, murder everyone they can, and secure the bridge, and assumably Moff Gideon. While Din goes in there, and the scientist was telling about the Dark Troopers, which, as far as I'm concerned, are Imperial Cylons. I'm sorry, they look like Cylons. They look like goth Cylons. I'm not complaining about that because even though the original Battlestar Galactica in the 70s and 80s was kind of crap, although I do kind of like the idea of the way it kind of ended, and Jane Seymour was working. You can't really argue with that. But the 2000s one with Edward James Olmos and Mary McDonnell and Katie Sackhoff um, is one of my favorite shows of all time. So having Star Wars Cylons, I'm not really complaining about Star Wars Goth Cylons. So I have to add that in there too because I mean, you know me, you know that's probably going to be a selling point to me anyway. And I noticed as well. I don't know if it's like a theme or I don't know if it didn't sound like they were going for just sound effects. It was actually almost like they kind of had their own music. It's pretty badass. Like I like the music on there anyway, and the kind of like stuttery, sort of electronic stuttery thing they have is kind of neat, combined with the sort of Enrico Marchione kind of thing. But the song that they had playing when the Dark Troopers were sort of booting up, because apparently they're just droids, they're not even cyborgs. Or I thought they would be cyborgs, like they'd be this weird, um, yeah, sort of yeah, like RoboCops sort of thing. Apparently they're just droids. But so there was a really cool little bit of music they had with that, and I was really interested in hearing more, but they really didn't. So his thing was to to basically launch them into space and then get the kid, meet them on the bridge. So he goes in there. He basically doesn't. One of them comes. He puts the thing in and tries to close the door in just enough time. One of them is able to come out and fight him, and he's got a hell of a time doing it. The rounds he was pumping off wasn't working. He was getting punched in the head a ton of times, getting pushed through like piping, basically. He was able to flame throw it into like the gear because we need to have exposed stuff, and that sort of let him down. Eventually, he was able to get the spear out and spear him, and then launch the dark troopers into space. And then when he goes to find the kid and the thing, that's where Moff Gideon is, because the rest of them have made it to the bridge at this time in a pretty badass way. I mean, it was really badass the way it's just marching through murder fest, and did a really entertaining and really damn efficient good job with that. And one of the sort of side note again, what I thought was cool, Katie Sackhoff did a good job with matching up the way she moved and the way she would hold her blasters, like she did the way that she was animated in like Clone Wars and Rebels. So again, that attention to detail, like they did in the episode previous, when Pedro Pascal, if he was looking at with the helmet off, he was looking at someone, moved his whole, instead of just kind of looking at, slightly turning your head or using peripheral, moving his whole body or moving his whole head to look when he didn't have his mask on, like he still had a helmet on. So that was a really good attention to detail with that, and it carried on even with Bo-Katan, because she did this and kind of moved in the same way that they had her in the cartoons, which I thought was, again, a nice little touch. And it wasn't, and again, just like the head movement, it wasn't anything that a lot of attention was brought to. It wasn't even posed like when Rosario Dawson as Ahsoka, they had her doing like the poses and stuff, in like, the sort of angle, like, action pose, like she did in the cartoon, and even with the reversed angle on the hold, which I really wish, side note again, or footnote, I guess, sort of thing. I really feel, if you haven't read it, Eddie Izzard's autobiography, you should read it, but you should also listen to the audiobook, because he's got footnotes in the book, but then he makes footnotes on the footnotes that are unique to the audiobook. So that's what I kind of feel like I'm doing now. I'm not anywhere near as entertaining or clever as Eddie Izzard, but that's kind of what I feel like in terms of what I'm doing. But I really wish Hollywood would get over the reverse grip on swords. They're not efficient. They're not effective. Once in a while, if there might be a certain technique or a certain move where it might be called for, but other than that, it's crap. You lose a significant portion of your uh, what would be like sort of dexterousness of the wrist, and the way that the blade can be used in the thing, all the range of motion and everything like that. You lose a ton of it with the reverse grip. You don't have the same flexibility going this way as you do coming this way. A huge amount is lost with that. Every time you see, well, every time I'm talking about Equilibrium, and in at least the first of the Christopher Nolan Fest Batman movies. I'm not a fan. I like Christopher Nolan in general. Each movie got like worse and worse as far as I'm concerned, but that's a different story. You see Christian Bale both of the times under thing with that. The Witcher show under thing with that. And if you watch a lot of these like sort of sword people rating fights, almost every single time there's a reverse grip on the sword. They're like, that's crap. No, you shouldn't do that. No, it's a bad idea. Again, once in a while there might be something where it calls for it. You can maybe get like an undersweep or something along those lines. It might work once in a while, but not with the frequency they're doing it. And if you notice, when the Ahsoka fight with Darth Maul at the end of Clone Wars, she starts with that, but if you notice, that fight between Ahsoka and Darth Maul was motion captured. It wasn't purely animated. is actually Ray Park as Darth Maul, and I'm drawing a blank on the woman who was playing Ahsoka. So there was a real person fighting with that. And if you notice, they flip both of her lightsabers to a regular position for most of that fight. And in fact, there was one point I noticed where she actually actively flipped it up because it's not an efficient way to fight. Anyway, where was I? Oh, because I was talking about Ahsoka and the cartoon bit. Right, got it. So stabby stab with the spear. The Dark Trooper finds Moff Gideon with a dark saber with Grogu in the thing. And so he's, Darth Gideon is actually using a lot of talking at this point in time, trying to be like, you know, all Bo-Katan is like, just know I know everything. Just assume I know everything. I know you had a hard, later on he says, I know he had a hard time with just one Dark Trooper. I know who's here. I know where they are. I know what they're doing. Just assume I know it all. All Bo-Katan wants is this, and he's the dark saber and everything, and Din is just sort of like, all right, fine, I don't care, I just want the kid, basically. So he's like, all right, so he puts the dark saber away, goes to get the kid, turns the dark saber on and starts just going after Din like crazy, and eventually he's able to get Din's able to get the spear out, and what's cool is as they were fighting and he's using the spear and coming in, if they're doing that thing where they hold and then like hold together, because that's always something that works in real life. I see it in movies all the time, but it's not, again, it's not really applicable. You can see the Beskar starting to warm up and get kind of red, and then it cools very quickly, which I thought was a neat thing. So long story short, he beats Moff Gideon, and takes the kid, takes the dark saber, he's got the spear, and they go up to the bridge, at which point in time it all is like, oh shit. And they're building in this whole thing of, oh shit. Because Din bested Moff Gideon and is now the rightful owner of the Darksaber. And Moff Gideon is playing this up. He's like, no, you don't get it. It's not the saber that gives power, it's the story behind it. So now she has to defeat you in order to be the rightful owner of the Darksaber. And Din's like, dude, I don't care. Here, take it. I yield. Okay, we got to fight. I yield. He even says, I yield. Here, take it. I don't care. He didn't say I don't care, but he's basic. I don't care. He's just offering it to her. And Katie Sackhoff does a really good job, like fighting. You know, she's a pretty good actress, and I think she's gotten better because when she was Starbuck in the good Battlestar Galactica, you could see a lot of times and a lot of things where there was a lot of going on behind the eyes, a lot of decision making, a lot of thinking. But since Starbuck is a very different character than Bo-Katan, she handled it in a very different way. And since Bo-Katan's a little bit older, and a little bit sort of more, is less of a firebrand, she's more sort of laser focused with things. You could still see her kind of struggling with the decisions and everything going on in her head. And while that's going on, the Dark Troopers are able to, because they've got all the boosters in their feet, so they're able to regroup and re-enter the ship. And they line up and they close the blast doors. And this is kind of the problem I have. There was several of the troopers spread out through the ship, and then like 6 or 8 outside the bridge doors. Blast doors are closed, so doors that are meant to survive big time, big mamma jamma explosions, right? So these things are rock'em sock, almost literally rock'em sock'em robots in the door and kind of bending it. Okay, maybe they might put some dents into it, but I don't really see how exceptional droids as though they may be, droids are going to be able to punch through blast doors. I don't get it. That it seems like, all right, fine, we're fine. It's just, can we vent the whole ship and just get rid of everything again, and then we'll just move the ship this time? The hell. But, but, remember 2 episodes ago when the kid was on Tython and sent out his force, whoa, 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 signaling, hi, how you doing? I'm here. Come get me. Well, that gets answered. And it was not at all what I expect at all. Now, the way they set it up it was clearly, sort of a Caucasian hand, one hand in the left. The right hand was in a black glove. Person had a green lightsaber, a green bladed lightsaber, and was dressed all in black. Now, it was made, I'm thinking, you're trying to look like Luke. You come in an X-Wing, you've got a green bladed lightsaber, you're all in black, you've got a black leather glove on your right hand. You're supposed to look like Luke. This is going to be a feint. It's gotta be. It's gotta be a feint. Who knows what could have happened to, I was thinking Ezra Bridger from Rebels. That was where my money was for the most part, and that was kind of who I wanted to see. So, now this Jedi, and everyone's watching like, holy crap, a Jedi. And Moff Gideon, Giancarlo Esposito, I've seen him in a bunch of stuff, and he's always really, really good. He did a good job. He's like, this whole time, didn't matter what was going on, getting his ass kicked by Din, surrounded by Cara Dune and Fennec, and when Boba Fett destroyed the other X-Wings, he left. So he's not on the ship. But, he's got 3 Mandalorians, including one that just beat his ass, and another one that wants to beat his ass real bad, and 2 other super badasses as well. And everyone's got guns and all this other stuff. And he's like, Jedi? Oh crap, an actual Jedi is here. And he did a really good job being worried about that. And Grogu is like kind of touching the screen. Like, ooh, I know this. And that Jedi was tearing through the Dark Trooper. Now, this whole season, you're thinking, oh, the Dark Troopers are going to be a problem. And they were for like 5 minutes until this Jedi showed up and just cut through them like a fucking lightsaber through already melted butter. Just not a problem at all. Like slick moves one way or the other, cutting them down, force pushing this thing, coming up, cutting through it. One of them he just cuts in half down the middle, which was awesome. It was really, really well choreographed. I thought probably better, like the fights with the group who were taking the ship, their gun battles were really well choreographed. And you even got to see ming-na do some of her a little bit of kung fu stuff, which is good because she's legitimately pretty much a badass on her own. A little bit of weird jump cut that maybe something or other wasn't her. I'm really tired of jump cuts and weird. I don't know what's going on in jump cuts or who this is. Hate that. Can we actually have some decent filming of a fight once in a while, please? And the fight between Din and Gideon, there's a couple of things I didn't like as much because, and I understand he might not be as used to fighting with a spear, but there were some obvious holes in his sort of fighting with Gideon that he didn't exploit as well. So I don't, there was a couple of things I'm like, that could have been done a little bit better. Like, I think someone of that fighting prowess wouldn't have done these like 2 things. They would have taken more advantage of that. But the choreography they did with this Jedi going through the ship, taking out these Dark Troopers, was slick as hell. I mean, this was clearly just a slick, badass, powerful Jedi Master. Like, just slicing through stuff. Razor through water. Just beautiful. So they get in, and I'm thinking, all right, so yeah, they're trying to make this look like Luke. There's no way it's going to be Luke. Holy shit, it was fucking Luke. It was actually Luke. Luke fucking Skywalker. I was like, holy shit, it is fucking. I'm thinking, nah, it's supposed to be Luke. And I actually said, holy shit, it's actually Luke. And I think I did this too. I might have done this too. I might have done this. I'm not sure which. And apparently, watching the credits later on, it was actually Mark Hamill. Everyone, like the whole internet was like, Sebastian Stan should play young Luke Skywalker. They look the same. Sebastian Stan's a pretty good actor. He could probably do it. So I was thinking, okay, maybe it is Sebastian Stan, and maybe you could tell there's still a tiny bit of uncanny valley there. It's better than the Leia in Rogue One, but there's a little bit of uncanny valley there, probably because it's actually Mark Hamill. It was actually Mark Hamill. But they digitized him to be much younger, obviously. Um, but he was actually Luke in this, and okay, you got me. I was not expecting that. I was not expecting Luke at all. I thought, I mean, it clearly wasn't going to be Ahsoka. Coming in an X-wing probably wasn't going to be Ahsoka anyway. Plus, I mean, it just obviously, Caucasian hand, one hand, black leather glove, green lightsaber, not white. If it was Ahsoka at that point in time, there wouldn't have been as much sort of mystery behind it because we already saw her. But it was actually Luke. But what's nice is that this is the way, I mean, though the hood was up and all that, anything to build some of the mystery, but, with imagination and everything, this is the Luke that you imagined would be from like the extended universe legends stuff now from the books. If maybe he wasn't trying as much. Because honestly, if you read the books, Luke is just straight up awesome. Like he's so ridiculously powerful, it's insane. But he's still like it's still really entertaining and really pretty good. But this is the Luke like you kind of always wanted to see. You never really got a chance to really see. I mean, part of it was, the technology and the the way film was even in like 83, 4 Jedi came out, Return of the Jedi. It's like 83, 84, something like that. The fighting in Western and American movies wasn't what it is now. After more and more people, or the people who were influenced by like Bruce Lee and stuff like that, now got old enough to be in the movies, or then some of the Jet Lees and Donnie Yen's, and then even more so Jackie Chan than when he already was, were big, and then Matrix brought in all the wire fu stuff and everything, kind of changed the way fight scenes kind of are. Um, you weren't really going to see that back in the early 80s, late 70s, early 80s. You weren't. But after kind of reading the books and thinking about it for 40 years and everything, this was the kind of Luke you wanted to see. You didn't really know it was him, but it was still the one that you wanted to see. But it was Luke, and I was not expecting Luke at all. I'm blown away. I'm still kind of like, holy shit, that was Luke. Um, and there was, Luke saying it was like, he wants sort of your permission to go with me. He's not just going to go. I sense your bond. It's you got a really strong bond. But, I swear to protect him with my life, but I swear to protect him with my life, but he's always going to be in danger until he can sort of master his power. Kind of understand that. So they do, he picks him up as now. No point in time. Now I'm probably going to watch it again, probably within the next day or so. But I don't remember the Mandalorian saying my name's Din Djarin. I definitely didn't say that. And not once did Luke introduce himself at all. Now there was one shot of Cara where she kind of was like, so she might know who he is. So when Din is swearing to Grogu that, we will meet again someday, I promise you, this isn't goodbye forever. We'll see each other again someday. Maybe, he might know who Luke is through Cara, because that's the most sort of reasonable person that you could think of would know. Because they didn't really introduce themselves. It's like, okay, you're a Jedi, you're the one that's got the kid, let's take the kid, let's go. So they have, a moment, and the kid, Grogu, like kind of touches the mask. He takes off his helmet. He takes off his helmet in front of everybody. Now, the only person that can see him face to face is Grogu, whom he's holding, and Luke. But everyone else, who might be behind him, he still took his helmet off in front of these other 5 or 6 people. And, Luke's seen his face now, Grogu's seen his face, and they kind of touch, and it was kind of, it was. It was kind of like, it was a little choked up moment. And he puts him down, and Grogu goes up. R2D2 comes out. R2's got his little cameo in this too, and it looks like Grogu and R2, or R2 was talking to Grogu. That's what it looked like. So they kind of had a little interaction. And Luke picks him up and says, "May the Force be with you." And you know, they go in the lift, and Grogu and Luke are looking at Din, and he's there, and it was a little choke up scene. It was a little choked up. It was emotional. So that's an interesting, that's interesting now because you've got, Luke and Grogu. Are they going to have their own? I doubt they're going to have their own show, but it's still probably going to be part of Mandalorian, which means that we're going to have whatever is going to go on with them, possibly having maybe years pass between seasons. So between season 2 and season 3, you might have maybe a couple years pass. Or after season 3, maybe season 3 skips ahead a couple years or something along those lines. So there's, that kind of builds in maybe what's going to happen with that. So maybe, sorry, my cat just sort of jumped because she's a cat. So maybe they're going to have a jump in years or something like that. Like Vikings does. Well, Vikings does it in the same year. Usually seasons happen back to back, but in the same season you jump 10 years or something like that. So there might be something along those lines. So you're going to have, wherever Luke and Grogu are going to train, and that might bring in other things as well. Um, like Ben Solo or something like that. But then you're going to have now maybe trying to liberate and unify Mandalore. So, but now you have that, also that whole thing is unresolved between Bo-Katan and Din Djarin because he defeated Moff Gideon as the rightful claim to the Darksaber. She doesn't. So there is going to be, already setting up conflict from there. And then who knows what's going to happen with Cara Dunes. There's the rumors that she's going to have her own show, but then again, there's her sort of social media, Gina Carano's sort of social media presence, which might leave Disney to kind of go, we're done, and let that kind of, this is what I'm like, oh, she's really good. That was a really good thing. And then she's, the sheriff in the thing, and then she's on the other planet, and we're just going to kind of do this now with it. So you're going to have, it's called The Mandalorian, so we're probably really going to get a lot of Mandalorian stuff with this. Now, there's also a third, or third, or third, and make sure you know the right one, or you're Michael Fassbender and get shot. Or, not actual Michael Fassbender, but anyway, Quentin Tarantino. There's an after credits scene. I always kind of check, because the credits are just sort of black instead of the concept art. And then, so I've kind of scrolled because I'm like, I wanted to see who was being Luke. I thought maybe it was Sebastian Stan for once, sort of catering to, Tumblr and Reddit and Twitter and all this other stuff might actually pan out for some good. It doesn't very often, but once in a while it might. But there's an after credit scene, and it's back on Tatooine in Jabba's palace with Bib Fortuna, the Twi'lek. I'm sorry, I'm going to say Twi'lek, not Twi'lek. Twi'lek, sort of, sycophant from Jabba back in time. He's got multiple chins, so he's kind of jobbying out, even though he's a Twi'lek, and it's all this other stuff. And then, there's Twi'lek sort of slave girls with that, because Twi'leks in Star Wars are sort of, the Asian girl-ish sort of fetish with everyone in there. I don't know why that happens, but that just sort of seems to be the way that works. And then in comes Fennec, starting to kind of murder people. And then in comes Boba Fett, murdering everybody else, including Bib Fortuna. They let the slave girls go, and Boba Fett sits on the sort of chair throne that Bib Fortuna has. Fennec kind of sits on in like a really sort of roguish sort of way, with her gun up, and then you kind of, oh my god, I'm going to see. Oh boy, I am sorry about that. That just sort of snuck up on me. So then they're there, and so now you get this whole thing where, oh wow, is Boba Fett going to take over this whole criminal empire? And then that clicks out, and you read on the screen the Book of Boba Fett coming December 2021. So Mandalorian, this is sort of like the first official thing of the Mandalorian having its own spinoff. There's conjecture about whatever else, but we're having apparently, it's that James Bond will be back again in fill in the blank movie or whatever. So we have that sort of confirmed that we're going to have a Boba Fett is going to have his own spinoff. It looks like Ming-na is going to be Fennec on that as well, so it's good to see her staying working in cool stuff. And it's going to be actiony too, so probably see her kick ass. So it's looking like Boba Fett's going to take over a criminal empire with Fennec, and that's going to be a spinoff with that as well. I know there's other things that within the last couple weeks have been sort of said, oh, we're going to do this show and we're going to do that show and we're going to do a Ahsoka show and the Kenobi limited series and we're going to do Bad Batch and we're going to do this, we're going to do that, we're going to do that. Okay, great, fine, whatever. It's nice that you've got some sort of announcements that you make. This was like an actual sort of, to me, this feels more concrete than any of the other sort of announcements or anyone on a stage with fancy signage basically behind them about what they want to do with stuff and everything, because to me that's almost just still a planning phase as opposed to actually happening. I know that you can see Ewan McGregor saying stuff here or there about what's going to happen with that, and Hayden Christensen being Vader again, which I'm sorry, the person in the Vader suit should be someone much more imposing than Hayden Christensen. I'm not taking anything away from Hayden Christensen at all, but if I were in his shoes, so to speak, and I had played Anakin for Attack of the Clones and not Phantom Attack of the Clones and Revenge of the Sith, he was in the full Vader outfit at the end of that movie. I would have said, why are you thinking of putting me in the full Vader costume? As fun as that might be for me to be in a full Vader costume for like the 5 minutes until I can't breathe and overheat, both of which are things that happen to me pretty damn easily, considering my whole, deviated septum and the 15 different things going on with my sinuses and the history of messed up stuff in my lungs and my metabolism, so I overheat. It would be a horrible sort of thing with it. But I'm not physically imposing enough to be in that costume. I'm like 6 foot on the nose at this point in time. The gravity in my spine and everything else with the shrinking was probably going to be happening before too long. Anyway, and even now, while I'm at my like most physically muscly that I've ever been in my life, I'm only like 180. 6 foot 180, not that imposing. I might have nice muscle definition, but you're in a full Vader costume, that doesn't mean a damn thing. I'm not physically imposing at all. You need someone who's going to be like 6'3", 6'4", at the least, probably a couple 100 pounds, a little bit of thing like that. If you wanted to put The Rock in that makes way more sense. Or someone way more physically imposing than me. And from what I understand, Hayden Christensen probably does not exceed my sort of measurements. So we might be maybe roughly the same height. I don't know how tall he is, but even if he's an inch or two taller, he ain't bigger than me. So why are you putting, you got to put someone in there that's like David Prowse. That had that presence with it and everything. You need that with it. But so you hear these things and everything, so it's like, okay, these are going forward. But this, to me, this is way more of a this is happening moment because it was, it was in the show. Granted, it's a post credit scene, but that is more than just an announcement. So we're gonna have, Boba Fett and Fennec take over a criminal underworld in one show, and that's its own going to be kind of its own thing. There's probably going to be crossovers. I'm just gonna guess that there's going to be crossovers, considering, they were able to bring Thrawn out of the books into Rebels, which was amazing because Thrawn, I really love Thrawn in the books, so I'm glad he made it in. They brought Ahsoka and Bo-Katan into the Mandalorian from the cartoons. They put Saw Gerrera in Rogue One from Clone Wars. So all these, there's crossovers all over the place already. You know, so there's probably crossovers with that. All these other shows are apparently taking place in this time frame as well. So I think everyone or everything's going to show up probably in some cross or other anyway. But holy crap. Man, that episode was amazing. It was like literally edge of my seat. That does not happen very often. Even, especially when I do sort of call it. Like there are a couple of things the Luke thing I did not call. I was not expecting Luke at all. I was expecting like Ezra Bridger from Rebels, or you know, maybe the whole thing until I saw the Caucasian hand. Maybe it would be, Mace Windu or something like that. Or if they were going to do someone from one of the games, or I doubted it was going to be. Well, no, it couldn't have been. No, anyway, never mind. It couldn't have been him. There's that, or maybe someone from the books that they were now bringing in, like, oh, surprise, another EU person coming in. I hate calling it Legends, call it Extended Universe because it was way better. Something like that. I was not expecting Luke. I thought Luke was just too much of a fanboy sort of thing. And part of me, there's actually a part of me that's a little disappointed because that was almost too obvious, too easy, and too fan servicey. And especially since you're going to have to now you've created huge extra problems for yourself with figuring out what the hell is going to happen and how to tie things in then with the sequels and with, well, the two sequel movies and then Rise of Skywalker, which is so bad, so bad. So it's almost like you kind of made more work for yourselves, Favreau and Filoni, maybe. Uh, and I don't know. There's a little part of me that's a little sort of like, Luke, really? But there's more of me that's like, holy shit, that was Luke. Oh my God, Grogu's gonna be Luke, and hopefully sort of fanboying out some stuff that we can see from there. And it might actually be interesting. Okay, you had Mark Hamill cameo as himself, as not himself, but as Luke at the end of this one with the CGI sort of age reduction sort of thing going on. But maybe they do use Sebastian Stan if he's going to be a mainstay of the show. The whole third, like, half of the third season is Luke training Grogu and other Jedi and other stuff like that. Maybe they use a different actor. So maybe they want to save money on the CGI or something along those lines. I don't know. So maybe they want to do that. I wouldn't say no to Sebastian Stan as playing Luke. I think he could do very well with it. I know both of them, or at least Mark Hamill, has had some sort of jokes on Twitter and everything about that too. So it might be interesting. Also having but I would say having Mark Hamill would be interesting with that too. But I'm really tired of stunt doubles. with a lot of things. I mean, there's at least, besides Pedro Pascal, who like 9/10 of the time is just the voice of Din Djarin, there's at least two other main people with it. One guy who does like a lot of the shooty bits, and then I'm really bad. I didn't look up any names before this because I literally finished watching the episode and am talking about it now. For I have to go shower and play D and then get online and play D&D. Which I'm looking forward to. 'Cause it's been a long week. But uh, but yeah, oh, it's the guy's name, and he does the capoeira fight with Tony Jaa in The Protector, and he's really interesting to watch when he's doing the fight scenes and stuff like that. And I'm blanking on the name. I'm really sorry to the gentleman um, who that is, because he's really good and really entertaining to watch. But he, is doing a lot of the other fight stuff. So, a bunch of times it's not Pedro Pascal. In a lot of these other fights, maybe even in Star Wars, but if, again, we're talking Disney, so all the Marvel stuff's with there too. Look at a lot of the Marvel fights. As much as I do like the Marvel movies, a lot of the fights are hard for me to watch. Part of it is because every move and a half, so they're fighting going really fast. Every move and a half is a jump cut to something else. And the camera is this, because somehow this always means that now we're actiony and you're in the action too. And then now, every time there's dialogue in movies and TV show now, I think I just dislodged my mic. Did I put that back in? Time out a second. Hold on. Okay, that's back on at least for me. But every time there's any sort of, movie or TV show that has any remote drama, you've got this going on with the camera. There's always this. Is that meant to make me feel like I'm actually in this? Is that meant to make it look like you're looking through somebody's eyes? Is that meant to be organic? Because quite frankly, sometimes it makes me a little queasy and it gives me a little bit of a headache and I got migraine. So I don't understand why when I'm looking at somebody, my vision isn't looking like I'm doing this, or I'm looking through things like this where everything's moving around. That's not the way vision works. Maybe I just got really good peripheral vision. I don't know, but that's not the way vision works. So in all those fights, and in half the fights, the people are doing ridiculous, dumbass crap that everyone thinks looks cool on camera. Like Scarlett Johansson is Black Widow in the dialogues, and for actiony shots when someone wants her to flip her hair back and get a little cleavage. The rest of most of the rest of those fights aren't her. Except if you're really close up to a face, it's almost always at least one other person, especially when they're doing that dumbass thing where she jumps up around them and they go spinny, spinny, spinny around the neck, spinny, cooling up the body, and then fall over. Okay, that was all right to see maybe once in like Iron Man 2, but we have to do it every single thing? No, we don't. Because quite frankly, it's not really that effective. It's not really going to work that much. It's stupid. I'm sorry, it's kind of dumb. I'm sick of seeing it. I'm sick of seeing stuff like that. And the Marvel movies were real bad, as far as I'm concerned. Some of the fight scenes are real bad because they're kind of exciting, but if you're actually watching a fight scene and have any sort of technical sort of thing with it, they're not well done because there's too many jump cuts and it's too clear and too many things that stunt people are in there and not really the actors. So my thing with Mark Hamill being Luke is, having him be sort of age correct for himself, Luke, is one thing. Him being 30 years, trying to be Luke 30 years younger. I mean, if he's going to do a lot of sort of, sitting on his cushion, sort of thing and talking about, the Force philosophically, religiously, being able to go through, some of the actual Force powers, the levitation, mind reading or control, any of the other stuff like that, that might work. But if we're going to have it where it's any sort of like movement or he's showing like any of the 7 lightsaber routines or anything else like that, I'm tired of not seeing the actor do the action. Yeah, Daredevil, there was a lot of times where it probably wasn't always Charlie Cox in the thing, especially those fight scenes that were all one shot. He's going in and out of a door and coming out another thing. You know, Once in a while, that's probably not Charlie Cox. Some of like the really acrobatic-y stuff like that might not always be Charlie Cox. Sometimes you can kind of tell it's him. Um, but you can kind of fudge that a little bit more. But even if you look at like Crouching Tiger, Hidden Dragon, it was Shao Yun Fa's character was actually supposed to be Jet Li was supposed to play it. But if I remember correctly, his his wife was having a kid, and he was like, "It's more important for me to be here when my wife is giving birth to my kid." Or was that Matrix? It might have been. I think it was actually supposed to be both, if memory serves. And then I think one of them, like, yeah, he was one of his kids was being born, and he was like, "No, I'm going to be here for that instead," which is admirable. So, but yeah, with Shao Yun Fa, he was doing a lot of the fights. There was a couple times like when he's playing the solo routine in the courtyard, and they have that wide shot. He's coming down and swooping in, and okay, clearly not him. But for a lot of the other stuff, it was. And I think they did a good job with, he was not old, but a little bit older than some of the stuff going on. Doesn't have a little bit. His action background was a lot of shooty stuff. Think Hard Boiled and The Killer. Which, if you haven't seen Hard Boiled or The Killer, watch Hard Boiled and The Killer, because when John Woo was back in the day, John Woo was freaking amazing. Hard Boiled and The Killer are two of the absolute best shoot 'em up movies ever. But he was doing that and maybe had a couple throws here or there, but he wasn't like a martial arts guy. But they were still able to make it obviously him doing stuff. Some of the Keanu Reeves movies, from The Matrix, even with John Wick, you can clearly see a lot of the stuff is him. It's not all super shaky stuff and everything like that. Now, I will say this as another side note: more if Keanu Reeves is still going to do John Wick or action movies, keep him doing the Aikido stuff. He's way more interesting to watch and way more believable doing that, because a lot of his striking looks too stiff, too gongy, and it looks like he's got a back problem. He doesn't look right doing the thing. Keep him doing the Aikido stuff and all the throws and everything. That's where that forte is. But I can't really see Mark Hamill lightsaber stuff with that. And I'd like to actually see the actor doing it, So that's why I think Sebastian Stan would be a little, even though with the Cap movies and everything like that, again, the shaky cams and the jump cuts all over the place, wasn't him doing some of that fighting too. It might be more interesting to watch. There's a lot of diatribes and a lot of places I went with there. I'm not sorry at all. So, Mandalorian season 2 as a whole, amazing. Like every episode was like, holy crap, holy crap, holy crap. The first season, every episode was really good, really doing a lot to bring you in and set stuff up. Second season built off the first season really well, went its own sort of way, and begun really tying stuff into the larger universe in some pretty major in both subtle and major ways. So having Bo-Katan on there made the inference of kind of huge things possible. But the episode itself was more contained and smaller. Same thing with Ahsoka. Bringing Ahsoka in is a huge, huge, major thing, but done in a contained, I would almost say more subtle, but still kind of more subtle way. Bringing that stuff in, because before the first season, it's kind of like Mandalorian is Mandalorian. It's on its own sort of path. Star Wars is over here. Was it that one meme with the boat back there, and you can say Star Wars here, and then there's the guy with the umbrella on the surfboard, That's Mandalorian. Well, not anymore, because that ship's coming this way, and the Mandalorian's going, they're going perpendicular to each other now, and really going in for it. So now we have a whole thing we're really probably in season 3 going to get into a whole thing about um, opening Mandalore back up. I saw something where Giancarlo Esposito had said before, season 3 is really going to answer some more questions in a lot of ways. And New Republic has shown up a couple more times in some more real ways than just sort of having some X-Wings and a prison ship of robots and people. Uh, so New Republic has snuck in a little bit more. And now you have Luke tying in that as well. I mean, Ahsoka and Luke in the same season brings up also, which I just realized, a now very, very interesting possibility. Even though she kind of was like, I'm doing my own thing, my own path, traumatized from her everything with Vader and talking about that and dealing with that, going in and not training Grogu, even though this, you would think fate would kind of the Force would kind of brought them in, even though she steered them off to the other planet. But there might be a certain call where she has some vision or something now. Maybe that's how Grogu gets away in later years when Luke kind of freaks out and Ben freaks out and Ben murders everybody. Maybe that's how Grogu gets out. Ahsoka foresees this and is able to get there in time to get Grogu. Who knows? But that also brings in, since they both were sort of introduced into Mandalorian in the same season, several episodes apart, but in the same season, that leads into a possibility. Was it that Chekhov's gun thing? If you see a gun in the first act, it'll probably come up in the third act. So if you see them in the same season now, there's a very real possibility they'll cross paths later on, especially if things are going to be answered in season 3 or in further seasons, however long this could go. You also have Mandalorian chilling out a little bit, took off his helmet. Maybe he's going to be a little more groovy about stuff and everything else like that. And who knows what's going to happen between him and Bo-Katan now that he kind of has the rightful Darksaber thing and she doesn't. That's what she wants. And then you're going to have the spin-off with Boba Fett and Fennec. So the whole season, they did a really good. Some of these series do a really good job with each of these episodes individually work by themselves individually, but they're doing a very good job tying it into the show itself, and now they're folding it in more to the universe as a whole. It's I'm trying to think of a different analogy, either with like cooking or music or something like that. You have maybe a I don't know, maybe 3 concept albums planned, and each one has songs that on their own can be good on their own, and each album works within itself, but now you're tying in each album with each other or something like that. So it's it's almost kind of got this rippling effect. So each thing's on its own, but then within the show, now within the universe, it's growing in its own juices. So, I'm sorry. That was awful. But it's sort of it's doing it's doing this whole thing now. And it's like the whole season was really good. Seeing Katie Sackhoff as Bo-Katan, and then how well they did with that was really good. There's a couple. I don't want to say the one with Bill, the penultimate episode with Bill Burr. I don't want to say it was a throwaway. because you needed to be able to find Moff Gideon. This is that you're going to find Moff Gideon. Again, it ties in some interesting stuff from before. It shows how much Din is committed to his sort of clan with the kid. He's just taking his helmet off because he had to. That what Bo-Katan called Death Watch religious fanatics basically. And what's really worth it at that point in time is the very stern, rigid religion of this is the way of, and this is this is the way and this is it. You deviate from this balance and then you're off, and you have no honor, etc., etc. What's worth it now? Where is it that is now? Where's the sort of line for that? And I think this also ties in really well with the Jedi as well, because the Jedi, and before they fell, in those last sort of years of the Republic, the prequel era and everything like that, had this very tight line of what they said was going to be what is right and what is the Jedi way. And if you veered from that at all, you're walking this tightrope, you kind of went this way or that way. Oh, it's on the dark side, you're evil. That's it. Nope, nope. You're evil. That's it. You're dark side. Bad. That's it. We're wholly corrupted by what's going on with the Senate and all these other people with the money, and we're super easily manipulated and all these other things. And Yoda's been here for a bajillion years and has sort of is super powerful, and everyone's going to go what he says, but he's pretty much corrupted by what's going on now, and their thought is rigid. For something that's supposed to be serving this unified spiritual consciousness of life, they are very rigid at what they want to do. Now, if I always sort of thought as Jedi as sort of Taoist samurai, what do we take from Taoism? Is that the rigid and the stiff, like a stick, a dead stick on the ground, it's very easy to break. But a live, sort of branch that's still got fluidity and flexibility, you can't break it. You can twist it, you might kind of damage it, but it will heal, it will come back. So Din was on this very narrow, rigid path. Now, maybe he's got some flexibility in his own personal sort of philosophy and self with that and everything. And I'm not talking about flexibility like from gross point blank, a moral flexibility, what, can allow you to just murder a bunch of people and be like, it's not me, it's not personal, it's someone else doing it, but you're still the one doing it. No, in terms of a flexibility of being able to adapt and change your mind, your consciousness, your feelings, your thoughts to kind of a more realistic sort of thing. Getting away from the imposed religion of a thing and finding a more sort of balanced sort of spiritual path, for lack of a better description. That was one of the things about, the sort of extended universe was nice was, Luke was ridiculously powerful on the light side. Did flirt with the dark side a little bit. There's, especially in some of the comics, he actually was, sort of an apprentice of a Palpatine clone for a while, but he still did stuff in a way that, wasn't murdery, wasn't really, sacrificing everything in rebellion too much. But then when he started his own Jedi Order, it was much more realistic. It was much more of the, okay, sentient beings are kind of this way, and we're going to be okay with that. And instead of thinking all attachments are bad and having a very polluted, diseased thought about what an attachment is, as opposed to, it's attachment to, a wife or a kid. You can't have that. That's bad. It's bad as your attach. You're holding on. Well, you're going to think and you're going to have feelings. Attachment is how you identify with those thoughts and feelings. You can live in a luxurious mansion and have a ton of stuff and still be unattached. You can have a family, a spouse and children and still be unattached because you're unattached to how you identify to your thoughts and feelings in a certain way. And he was, and they brought that in Rebels. I think it was I think I've talked about this before too with Ahsoka. It was nice about Rebels. It was Kanan was teaching Ezra. It was like, no, you're going to be afraid. You should be afraid. People are going to have fear. And a lot of the sentient beings in the Star Wars universe, you can still, as much as it would not be so in kind of the real world, you can kind of apply a certain amount of humanity to them, the way that they're being portrayed. So people are going to have fear, they're going to have emotions, they're going to have thoughts. It's how you deal with those, as opposed to you can't have any attachments, hold on to nothing. And I think in even some of the old comics during the Clone Wars era, there was a female Jedi, and she didn't have a name because names are attachments too. It's like, again, this is a dis-ease, toxic view of what attachments are with that. So now Din is starting to kind of loosen up a little bit and be more of a complete, well, he's human, so be more of a complete man, be more of a complete person, which can only be good for him. And I think it's good to show, too, a certain amount of, oh, I hear you have this sort of masculine ideal. He's got the cool car, which blowed up, but he's got, the armor, and he's a badass, and he can shoot, and he can fight, and, he's a bounty hunter, and he's got the cool ship, and everyone's afraid of him, he's got respect and all this, and he has this very strict code of honor, like a man should. But what's now really important with that? Now he's starting to get, connections with people. He's starting to get connections with other things. And literally now some of that armor is coming off. And he's becoming a much more real and a much more true man than he was before. As badass as he was, there was a lot missing to him as being a true man. Now some of that is easing off a little bit, which is very interesting. So, the whole season, Mandalorian Season 2, amazing. Bringing in Bo-Katan and then that whole Mandalorian aspect, actual Mandalorian, Mandalore and the whole planet and people. Din's continued development as a person, the possibilities going on with people like Cara Dune and everything else like that, bringing in Ahsoka, and now, that finale episode was just absolutely phenomenal. And now having Luke be the Jedi that Grogu's going to train with is insane. So it did a really good job continuing from season 1, having closure, but also opening up now things in a massively, massively huge way. So excellent, excellent show. Really, really love it. Really, really well done. Really, really happy with the way everything was going with things. I like, really, it's just really an amazing show, and I really am hoping if this pretty much goes another season, shoot, if this goes another season or two, um, and only maybe 4 or 5 seasons with 8 to 10 episodes per thing, and that's it, and they cut it off, and it still stays this quality, I'm good with that. As much as I might want more, I'd rather have quality over quantity. I'd rather have 5 or 6 seasons of 8 to 10 or 12 episodes of a damn fine quality show than 10 seasons of 22 episodes each of something where it's like, all right, I can skip this, I can skip that, I can skip this. Okay, here we go. This part, these 4 episodes I'm going to watch, these 2 episodes I can skip. I'd rather have the quality over the quantity of it. So this is why I'm a little wary about everything that Disney has shown for both Marvel and Star Wars coming out on Disney Plus. Because they're still going to do some of the Marvel movies, but they have all these shows. Now, Star Wars is going to have all these shows too. I'm worried that they have now way overextended quality creations. You know, Dave Filoni can't put as much work as he's done in Clone Wars and Rebels and Mandalorian into 7 other shows on top of Mandalorian as well. He can't do it. Neither can Jon Favreau. And I'm only using only those two as the base because they're the ones that within have shown to be the most consistently quality with it. Again, Rise of Skywalker. So I'm worried that they're overstepping in terms of the larger stuff that they're trying to do. I'm hoping I'm wrong. I really am. If Kenobi's only going to be a limited series, that's kind of hopeful to me. And if there's an Ahsoka show, I'm guessing Dave Filoni's probably going to have his little Star Wars fingers in that too, and I hope he does. But you got a ton of these other shows, a little worrisome. For right now, just Mandalorian. It is, I mean, it's been a pretty perfect show. Every episode's been solid. They're bringing in people and using them effectively. They're creating their own mythology as well as slowly folding in the bigger one as well, bigger ones kind of thing as well. There's a little bit of fan service, a little bit of stuff that's more a little bit unique. They've got, depth. You could just see, even you just had the Mandalorian be what he was in like the first few episodes of the first season, and just having that kind of like stoic lone wolf and cub thing. They could ride that for several seasons and still probably be an enjoyable show, but they're giving everyone character growth as well, and it's subtle. It's not like, oh, this one thing beats you over the head. It's not like Christmas Carol. Now he goes through one or two things, and all of a sudden he's a completely different person. No, it's this slow growth over now the 16 episodes, a slow growth as he's going, which is awesome. So if they can keep that up, man, it's going to be great. So season 2 of The Mandalorian was really good, really, really enjoyable in a lot of different ways. Kept some stuff funny, made some stuff serious, brought in old things, did new stuff, folded it, thing, the other thing. And that finale, baby, whew. Maron, I mean, that was... I don't get edge of my seat very often, regardless of whether or not I can anticipate what's going to happen or not. But man, I was on this. I was like, really, I just stopped. Like I was having some chips with a sandwich. I was like, stop, put it away. I damn near crushed the cat, leaning in, watching and everything. So, well done, Dave Filoni and Jon Favreau. Well done, everyone on The Mandalorian. Exciting, looking forward to more, and really enjoying what's out there too. So, I've been talking for an exceedingly long amount of time, and yeah. So, ciao. Enjoy. Happy hunting. And thank you, by the way.